basically I pushed it off to them to figure out what they're gonna do, because that was I know she spent like hundreds of euros a month on those scams.
Oh,
it was like really bad.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And speaking of scams, speaking of scams, hello and welcome to Everyday Channel number 161, your favorite, most deceptively named bi-weekly legacy podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our brand new Patreon, Martin Miguel Amor, MD. Dude, we got a serious proper doctor working for or supporting us now. Is that how it works?
I think it's the best name we've got.
It certainly is. And I had to shorten it. There was another initial in there, but I didn't know what it stood for. So Martin, thank you so much for your support of Everyday Channel. And if you want to support the running of the show directly, you can support us on patreon.com/everydayeternal. It's the end of the year, guys. This is very consciously not another one of those, okay, let's look back at the last 12 months, let's talk about this and that all of you are aware of. We did that last year. I think it was kind of cool. Didn't we actually do like the Legacy Awards or something? I can't believe it's been already another year. Maybe we should do that in the next year at some point.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't remember at all.
Time flies, right?
We probably did. We probably just talked about the cars that happened, the events that happened, rounding out. But I feel like everyone does that. I don't know. I'm a bit bored of myself, let alone others.
By the way, this is Callum Smith. I wanted to make it a habit to introduce us, because I felt like, dude, this is like we're not really big, but whenever I tune into a new podcast, I at least want to learn like what the hosts are called, right? So my name is Julian. I'm from Germany. We got Callum Smith from the UK, and as a special guest today, we got Anuraag Das from Anuraag. You live in San Francisco now, I want to say.
I'm deep in the Bay, the west coast of the USA. Hey, how's it going?
Yo, that sounds amazing. But actually, is it though? I've heard things that like people have to lock away toothpaste and stuff. Is that bad?
I mean, it's expensive, and yeah, in my grocery store, like I toothpaste is definitely like behind a key and lock, which is really weird to me. But
are you shitting me?
I know
you have to call somebody, be like, hey, that one with the strawberry taste or whatever it is, I want that one.
It's like toothpaste, it's like dishwashing detergent, and like vegetable oil. Those three things I have tried to buy from my local grocery store, and it was behind key and lock, and I was just like, what? And so, yeah.
That's wild.
And for those wondering why we have Anuraag on today, he's the greatest thief in the multiverse. He will tell us how to make a living in the Bay Area without any toothpaste. No, seriously.
This is the only reason, for sure.
If you don't know Anuraag, I think there's if you listen to this podcast and you play Legacy, there are a few people you are more likely to know than Anuraag. But if it happens that you don't know him, Anuraag, I want to say you are the glue that holds the format together, in the sense that you basically provide 90% of global coverage of Legacy, at least in the English-speaking world.
Yeah,
I bet there's somebody calling you. They want another like day of coverage. Like somebody's addicted. Like, Anuraag, come on, just like a couple more hours of coverage, please.
He's about to say an NDA thing.
Yeah, no, sorry about that. Yeah, so yeah, it is fascinating. I do a lot of coverage. It's weird because 10 years ago I just started off as a Magic player. Today I don't know if I would call myself really competitive, but it's still fun. I think content is super awesome to just be engaged in, and really does consume my mind a lot more than just like, oh, how do I want to take down this next RCQ or something of the sort. The story is long and winded, and is it's kind of cool to see where I'm at now.
But we'll get into that in a minute, because we asked our Discord audience about which kind of questions they had for you. And what we want to do today overall is we want to look back at two of the biggest non-GP Legacy events ever, the two Eternal Weekends that you covered, like everything that involved your production of that, but also look forward to, because that's the conscious idea behind this episode. We don't want to look back at what happened this year. We want to look forward to like what's next in store for specifically Legacy, but maybe even like Magic and Magic coverage as a whole in the next year. But before we get into that, you might know, like, alert listeners might have noticed that our co-host Kai Savatari has been absent for like the last 2 episodes or something. He's in prison, I want to say. Nobody has ever said something contradicting that, so I will
heard
reply.
Him hitting the pipes today. I don't know.
Wait, he's hitting the pipes?
Yeah, down in the cellar. Yeah. I think he's trying to get out. But...
Like, you're the native speaker. I thought hitting the pipe meant something else.
British humor, am I right?
No, it's just locked downstairs in the cellar, hitting the pipes, trying to escape.
Yeah, I got that like after a second.
But he is also probably smoking some weed, I'm sure.
Yeah. But, apparently he managed to sneak out because as I opened Twitter today, he's in the top 8 of the Japanese God of Vintage event.
Let's go.
And for those who don't know, like, God of Vintage, that's like some serious business. I want to say it's one of the more, it's certainly not the most prestigious, like Eternal Weekend, we're going to talk about that, but it's one of the most prestigious vintage events in the world, and it has one of the coolest prizes. We've talked about that on, I think, a couple of episodes. If you become the Japanese God of Vintage, you play free, I think it's actually all formats, not only vintage formats.
Yeah, for a year as well.
For basically the entirety of your divinity, of your godhood, whatever you would call that. And it's super hard to dethrone the actual god because you have to win the regular tournament. And after winning the regular tournament, they then pair you up against the reigning god. And I think the reigning god actually gets to choose their deck, which makes it even harder to commit like Deicide or something.
Yeah, they kind of metagame against you.
I love that. Like, the flavor is really there. Like, once you become a god, it's so hard to like die.
Yeah,
Wait, that's kind of funny. So they just have like extra vintage decks to pass around like that. Like, oh, metagame against this vintage deck with this vintage deck. I don't know. That's kind of cool format.
I don't understand the exact details, but we talked about it before with Kai, and he was like, they have to choose their deck ahead of time, but then they can tech within that. But you've got to retain your, like, you've got to not metagame too much.
The challenger has to stick to the deck that they went through the regular tournament with.
Yeah. But like last year in Legacy, I think it was like a 4-color control deck got to the finals, and the other person was a Delver player. So they changed their Delver deck by like cutting all the bolts and stuff, but by retaining respect
so
for keeping
dirty.
with proper Delver and stuff. It was stuff like that.
Truly divine.
Wasn't like the last God of Legacy actually won by a Chinese player? So they needed like a translator for the interview and everything?
It rings a bell, but I can't remember now.
Yeah, so a Chinese player reigns over Japanese Legacy now.
It'd be so sick if Kai wins this vintage one.
He might stay in Japan. Like, he was actually messaging me every once in a while. He was like, dude, I love Japan so much. Like, this is the bathhouse. I go to this place every night and everything. So, I mean, the contrast to Berlin, like, I don't know if any of you have ever been to Berlin, but I can very much see it.
I have many times.
You have? Okay.
Yeah. He's just gonna be like, sorry boys, I'm not coming back, I'm a god, sorry.
A generous god, I must stay with my people. Okay. Yeah. Cool. But yeah, we'll see. I guess on the next episode we'll find out how Kai did. He hasn't posted an update in a while, which makes me think he went all the way to the finals, of course, but we'll find out about that in a moment.
Wait, how do you tweet from prison though?
But I think in German prison you probably like have regular internet.
Wait, what?
I would think so. Like, I'd be surprised if you didn't have like internet in German prison.
Okay, we'll talk about this another time, I guess. But you just blew my mind. This is like the equivalent of toothpaste being locked up.
We'll ask Kai when he comes back. Whatever times it takes.
We found him with 5 Doomsdays in his deck, sir.
Oh, yeah, okay. Now we're gonna ship him off to some prison island or something.
Australia.
St. Helena is calling. Okay. Anyway, so Anuraag.
Julian.
We have one person in our Discord who wants to know everything about you. We already talked about relationship history. We're not going to get to that. But they want to know, what's your origin story as a Magic player? What was your first deck? What drew you into Magic? And what also allegedly sparked your joy? Because I know, like, your first Legacy deck. And I hope that's not how you got your start.
What it do, baby?
Well, it looks like you found my alt account in your Discord server, so very good, very good. Yeah, this is kind of interesting. So my origin story for Magic dates back to before I even started playing Magic.
Before I was born.
Yeah, pretty much, right?
It's like that tragic story of my parents died before I was born.
Oh, it's not that dark. It is like, so like when I was in high school, and maybe a lot of people can sort of like relate to this. Like I definitely wasn't the most popular kid in my grade or whatever, in my class. And my best friend at the time was just as quirky as I was. And for his birthday, he had invited me out to like a beach house or something like that. I forget what it was exactly. An annual tradition that he had. And while we were there, yeah, spoiler, we didn't go to the beach at all. We kind of just like hung around all day, ate junk food, and watched TV. But he handed me a deck of cards, not for Magic, but for Yu-Gi-Oh! And we battled a couple of games. And spoiler, I got clobbered. I got absolutely destroyed. And something
you didn't draw like Pot of Greed?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like I mean, there was like a Pot of Greed equivalent at the time, and I didn't. My friend had the deck, a card in his deck. Obviously, I did not. He just gave me like a hodgepodge mix of cards, and so I just got crushed, right? It's like imagine you're playing Legacy and you give your opponent like a draft deck. That's basically what happened, right? Yeah. And so I, being me, very petty at the time, and just like I'm just very competitive, right? Like from a very young age, my parents like they put me in all these math competitions. They made me do all this extra credit work. Like I was trying to be like valedictorian, all that sort of stuff, right? And so like instantly I was like, well, I refuse to accept defeat here, and immediately, yeah, exactly, immersed myself in like the lore, the game, to an obsessive level, and that sort of sparked my competitive story or timeline with card games in particular. Losing to my friend in a beach house where we didn't go to the beach.
And then you bought like a vintage deck and you crushed your friend.
Well, I mean, I did what I could. I started getting into the game, bought all the good cards, and then finally it was like we're fencing basically, right?
Dude, it's to interrupt you there. I very specifically remember one point in my life where I played Magic at school, and I ordered a card online, which I felt like was the dirtiest thing I could do, because we only ever traded amongst each other. And that's like how we built our decks, and we bought booster packs and stuff. And then I discovered that you can order Magic cards from the internet. And I ordered, I think, 4 copies of Pack Hunt, which is completely a horrible card. And I picked that up from the post office. And one of my friends actually just randomly happened to be at the post office as I picked up the card. And I felt so dirty when they asked me what I got, and I didn't say Magic cards. Because I felt like I was almost cheating because I ordered cards from the internet to make my deck better.
Ooh, yeah. No, I mean, like that part, I kind of got over that phase so quickly. I was just like, I'm going to win. I'm going to crush you, and it's not going to be close. Yeah. So like, fast forward a few years later, I got into Magic because I kind of got tired of like Yu-Gi-Oh and everything that was going on. The game itself was also kind of just like, it wasn't what it was before. And I found some friends in college who were playing Magic. I was like, what is this? So on and so forth. And basically my background in Yu-Gi-Oh, like one thing that I had learned from Yu-Gi-Oh, I was just conditioned to sort of grind out resources, eke out advantages. And so naturally, the deck that spoke to me most when I first got into Magic was like the blue, white, red flash deck with Augur of Bolas, Snapcaster Mage, Restoration Angel, and
that pile.
Yeah. Like
okay.
The Jerry Thompson deck from a long time ago. And let me tell you this, spoiler, I was really, really bad at that deck.
You already mentioned that at Augur of Bolas, yeah.
Yeah. And I like, but like, the competitive nature in me, I discovered Magic Online, and at the time we didn't have leagues. So me being as obsessive as I was, like I would just play in all the dailies I possibly could. I even battled in, do you know like the two-person leagues? Yeah, dude, exactly.
The 2-man they were the worst value in the history of Magic. Like you needed to win like, I think like almost 70% to break even. It was like so horrible, and I was so addicted to that shit as well.
Someone is as old as me. Okay, very, very good. Good to know that I'm not alone on this one. Yeah.
Dude, the 2-mans were horrible. Like at some point, like you got like 1.6 for a win or something, and you lost everything for a loss. It was just like the value was horrible, and it was the only thing we had, people. Like we had in your particular time zone, you could make like one daily event. And I would sometimes go home early from university, from lectures, just so I could play in the daily event, which was like 4 rounds. Yeah.
For the 2-mans, did you guys ever put like 4 Lay Down in the Void, 4 Torment Script in every sideboard?
Dude, yes, because you could actually... that was the stupidest shit ever, because you could already see which player was waiting in the 2-man, who was the first one to join.
Dredge. Yeah.
So sometimes you would join with like the complete anti-deck, and it was just, yeah... But yeah, I played like thousands of matches of that.
I lost a lot of money. Spoiler, I'll tell you this much, because I was not good. So then what ended up happening was I played a lot of standard from Blue, White, Red Flash. I even dipped my fingers into Value Jund with Bonfire of the Damned. This is like back in 2013, right?
This is when I was really in standard as well. This is my time. I love it.
Yeah. And so like within like 6 months though, I discovered that there was this format called Modern, and I discovered that there was this archetype called Birthing Pod, and I think very quickly that was like one of my favorite decks before when I played. And it's kind of weird because I think a lot of people will like associate me with like, you know, being like a control player at heart. But honestly, like the decks that speak to me most, like what I enjoy are like the, imagine like an LSV vintage cube deck. It's like control, but then it has a combo finish. And so Birthing
I'm
Pod.
so surprised you didn't say twin then.
Yeah. Well, Pod was kind of
It has some similar things.
right? Like, I mean, it wasn't exactly control combo, but it had like, I think it was like at the time it was stronger than Twin 2. So I was like, all right, whatever, I'll just play this deck. And then, yeah, like, but just like in that same vein, right? Like Miracles back then was like Sensei's Dividing Top with an Entreat the Angels combo finish. Even now today, you've got like Uro plus like a, you know, fourth Erlinga's combo finish. I stretch the definition of combo very, very liberally, by the way.
Yeah, I think it fits pretty well. I think.
And then, but like the standard, like, okay, make my land drop. Okay, counterspell. Like that's fun to a degree, but there needs to be some sort of element in there that's just like overwhelmingly cool or like a finisher, kind of like the One Ring in Modern, right? So, anyways, I played a little bit of Birthing Pod. And as fast as I moved into Modern, I pivoted into Legacy. And like this was like, you know, back when we had like the Sunday morning / afternoon Star City Games events. Yeah,
the golden time, the golden era of like playing in your Saturday Legacy event and then coming home and watching Legacy on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so the first deck that I saw that I was like, my jaw dropped, hit the floor. I was like, this is a cool deck.
I know what's coming.
Well, I don't know if you do. It's turn 1 Deathrise Shaman into Stoneforge Mystic or Dark Confidant.
Okay, I did not know what's coming.
There's a plot. This is a bumpy ride. Like this is a lot of plot twists here. So I picked up all the duels for that. I worked a summer job so that I could afford the duels. It's kind of funny to think that I could actually even do that at one point in time because like definitely not now, right? And then from Stoneblade or Deathblade rather, I went into Shardless Bug. And then there was this person in my local play group at college who played like the old school 4-color loam version with like, you know, Mox Diamonds, we know, Night of the Reliquary, we know, but like Devastating Dreams. Do you remember that?
Dude, yes, I very much remember that.
That card
very much.
was
like 2007, and then it had a revival in 2010. And then it lingered around for like a couple more years.
That was a Hoogland special as well. People won't know that, but he at least put it on the map at least, that version.
Yeah, in the US he was very much associated with it. In Europe it's more like Dimitri Nikitin and Nicolas Kronberger. Those were like the three probably most famous low. And Anuraag, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got so frustrated with my bayous and underground seas getting just like wastelanded into oblivion that I was like, all right, enough is enough. And then I entered my darkest arc ever, which was a 9-month fling with Emrakul and Gristlebrand. I was a show and tell main.
That's where I was getting at. This is like the origin story I know. This is like I know that Anuraag used to be like an Emrakul boy.
You were the chosen one.
I know, right? And so I remember like I played it at an SCG IQ. It was my winning in, and I went Ancient Tomb, Lotus Petal, Show and Tell. Opponent went Force of Will. I forced back, put Gristlebrand into play. They rolled their eyes and just got up and walked out. Like I was like, okay, cool.
Did you feel dirty?
Oh yeah. But like you know, it's zero sum, right? Like you have the good moments, you have the bad moments, and like one day I was at a locals. This is like, you know, towards the end of college, and my opponent, Austin, I think Williams is a name that I remember from the Houston area. I don't know, whatever. Anyways, they're playing like good old Team America, like, you know, 2013-ish, 2014-ish kind of style. And they go, you know, Spell Pierce your turn 1 play, him to Torok you again, you know, and then Force of Will, and you're just out. And I was just like looking at my deck, and I was like, well, this is horrible. Like, I feel like I made all the right plays, but I just didn't have enough agency in my games to sort of, you know, maneuver around what my opponent was doing.
I want to play Magic, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, all right, here's what we're going to do. I had just come fresh off of reading a story, or an article by Reed Duke, where he narrates why he lost to Joe Lissette over and over and over again. TLDR, Joe basically played one deck and became a master of it. And so I said to myself, all right, I'm going to pick a deck, and I'm going to get so goddamn good at this deck that, you know, people will, you know, they'll know, you know?
And that's when you picked up Burn.
Yeah, cut and, you know, and then go to there or whatever. No, but like I was like, okay, well, what deck gives me the most options and the most ways to sort of control my own story? And I mean, at the time, I think, you know, Sensei's Divining Top was just that card. The other options were like Elves, I think Storm, and then this, and I was like, all right, well, let's pick this up and go with it because it had a lot of controlling elements with the combo finish that I kind of liked. And from there, I mean, it's kind of history. Just played a lot of that deck, almost too much of that deck. It died, I died. It came back, I came back. Ups and downs, and now we're here in 2023, going into 2024 with a radically different control shell, but a lot of similar elements to like the deck that I fell in love with.
One might actually say you've basically played every iteration of a control deck ever since like the OG Miracles deck, right?
Yeah, I unfortunately didn't get to play even like the older versions, like good old like what is it like top counterbalanced fire spout Tarmogoyf kind of stuff, like OG,
like four kind of
OG.
supreme blue and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's what it is, right? And
that
I wish
even
I
had
did.
like Rock Swarmonk. Like you missed out, man. You missed out. Rock Swarmonk. That was the shit.
As Uro at home.
Oh man.
Okay. I mean, you're right. Oh, that's actually so cool. Like, I really didn't know that you had like this deep history in like Magic altogether. I really thought like, I mean, that's great why we have you on the cast now. I really thought like you came into this from Yu-Gi-Oh! And you were like, oh, Anuraag, Grizzlebrat, this is almost like my creatures in Yu-Gi-Oh! This is what I'm doing. But I didn't know there was like this huge backstory to all of this.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anyone who plays Yu-Gi-Oh! And remembers Thunder King Ryo was like the card. And it's funny to put it in Magic the Gathering terms. It's like a creature that I don't even know. It's like what is it called? Oh, what is it? What is the spirit that is like the angry guy, the 2/1 that you can like sack to counter a spell or something?
And I only know Selfless Spirit, which is like gives all of the creatures on
it's like
indestructible.
I know it.
The guy with the cane, and then there's a backside to it, right?
Yeah. Then you can,
that wizard dude.
Something hermit.
Yeah, the hermit. Yeah. So that's the kind of card that like I would play with in Yu-Gi-Oh. And it's a very like balanced card. It does what it needs to do, and then it also has a really cool effect on it. And that's actually like my actual origin story is like finding granular advantages and really just like that's why like Deathblade was like the first thing I was like, oh yeah, this is exactly like the parallel that I'm looking for.
So did you have any kind of like success in Yu-Gi-Oh?
I had the equivalent of one GP top 8, which
okay.
But I say that, but in Yu-Gi-Oh, a GP top 8 is like they cut to top 32, and so it's crazy how different that competitive environment is. The TLDR, like no, not really. But like I don't think I was like that bad. Like I maybe bubbled a couple times here or there, but that was like the only real result that I actually.
So you were like this kind of grinder on the Yu-Gi-Oh Grand Prix scene, but who never made it to the very top level. But you were there, I guess.
Yeah, I knew a lot of people. I think my peak. Like when I was really in the grind, I think there was a time when I drove from Houston to Miami. That's a 14-hour car drive. By car, and I was also in the trunk of the car too. So it was like it was a Jeep. So it wasn't like they like closed the lid.
We need an entire podcast about like human trafficking or something.
Yeah. So like, I was committed for a time. It was great. It was great.
It sounds.
Would I do it again?
Like it.
God no.
Yeah, I can imagine. Dude, that sounds amazing. I still don't know how you actually became the god of death in Texas, basically, who has been like forbidden from ever touching the deck just because like the universe would implode.
It's like the greatest meme, by the way. I love it to death and back, but also like I actually tried to play Death in Taxes the other day, like with like the new black-white build, and by the end of round 3, my head was in like such like severe, but like I like almost like such a severe headache. I was like, all right, well, I'm closing this league. I'm ending the stream. I'm going to bed, and tomorrow is going to happen. Like at some point.
Oh, you didn't even finish the league on the stream?
No, I went 2-1 drop.
Okay, we gotta find the VOD is gonna be on YouTube. I would guess.
Somewhere, yeah.
Somebody will find it. Maybe we'll link it in the show notes. We will see. I certainly want to see that. Okay, dude, that's an amazing history lesson. One thing, it's super awkward, but Discord requested it. What is your educational history? And just for some context, I linked the 2 videos in our show notes here when like we met you, or I rather met you at GP in New Jersey in 2014, where like you talked to Philipp Schoeniger, and there's like a second video of Philipp basically grading your sideboard plan and everything, and
that video
you taking
is
notes.
so cute.
Yeah, and
I was the biggest Schrodinger fanboy. I cannot even begin to you like. So you remember like the OG Miracles Cabal, like very draft number 1. Like this is the first thing I ever met.
That chat is responsible for making Brian Cook very angry over the years. So I'll have you know, we need to.
I remember like you had to have like some sort of results or something like that to sort of get into the and talk to everybody, and I had nothing. Like I was just a guy like playing Legacy, trying to get better, and eventually what I ended up doing was I went back to, and I'm going to date myself here, I went back to the source and I compiled every single post that Philip had made into a Word doc, because that's how
a little bit
like
obsessive.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, like, I was like dialed in, man. I was like, I really want to get good. This is the best guy. I'm gonna play like him. And I mean, that was part of my quote unquote learning process. I think I struck his heart a little bit there. He was a little bit charmed that I did that, and was like, all right, maybe we can let him in. And so when I went to the infamous SCG Con Jersey, the one where I made top 8 but got disqualified, that one was, he was like, all right, if you go like X and 3 or something like that, or X and 4 or whatever, we'll let you into the chat because you've done so much work. And I ended up making top 8, and then I got DQ'd. So they were like, well, you know what, we'll still let you in. And that was how I opened the door, got my first foot in.
That was like, to very quickly go over that. We know Anuraag is like this super bad cheater and everything. No, but seriously, like this is where you roll that die to make a decision based on whether you would concede or not or something.
Yeah, my opponent drew 8 cards, and back in the day, like that was either you mulligan to 6, like forced Thoughtseize, or what I found out on the spot there was you can intentionally draw the game and go to game like the next one, right? Because Magic is not actually like, this is relevant with all the Amalia stuff going in Pioneer, but it's actually first to 2 wins. It's not like first to 2 points, right? Yeah, or a best of 3, exactly, right? So you could play technically like 70 games in a single match if you really wanted to get crazy about it. But I was naive. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to like seize the win, because I was playing against elves, and at the time, like that was kind of like a buy. Like I'll be sorry, Julian. I'll be super honest, and I felt bad for my opponent, but part of me was like, it's $2,000. Like, this is a lot of money. So I was like, all right, let's just like flip a coin. And that coin got me DQ'd instantly as I was trying to help my opponent by going into a fresh game so they didn't have to mulligan. Whatever it is. It's a good story. And I learned a lot from that moment. So now I'm cutthroat. Now I'm just like, slap. I take what is mine, you know?
I agree, and I guess we don't want to go too deep into that, but
sure.
Stuff like that sometimes still happens, and I think judges should never put that decision to the player, because it puts them like in this horrible spot of like, do I want to like seize like my competitive aspiration? Like you know what I mean, right? It puts them in a horrible spot. Like either it's this choice or it's that choice. But leave it up to the referees, and not like, don't put a player, especially like if you're like new to a competitive environment, kinda, then it puts you just like in this terrible spot, and I just like don't want judges to do that. And
I will say they have since changed the rule on that, so I don't think it's something that newer players will have to deal with, which I'm very happy about.
Okay, that's great. So to go back to the initial question, Deathrite Ranger mentioned that you sounded very sophisticated and well spoken. And that's why they got interested in your educational history. So very quickly, like, what did you do for school, university, and all that kind of stuff? Yeah,
I don't know. Nothing like particularly insane. I have it's just like it's all natural riz, baby. No, I have a degree in computer science and a minor in philosophy. So how that translates to sounding sophisticated, I don't really know.
Well, that's the computer science part, probably.
Maybe I'm just like, I don't know, like so like my pet name translates to like just like talks a lot. That's basically what it is. I don't know, I guess because when I was a kid I talked a lot, and so my mom's like, all right, well, this is your pet name, and so that's it's Boltu, which is like kind of like that's kind of what it translates to, and maybe that's it. I just naturally I don't shut up. And so eventually at some point you fall in love with it. I don't know. I'm making some stuff up here, but that's my educational background.
When you say like a minor in philosophy, like how deep does that go? Because that was like part of my education too. And is it like, do you talk about like all the Greek classics or Renaissance like thinkers and stuff? Like, where does it actually go?
Yeah, there's a little bit of history. There's a little bit of like theory, things like that. I would say, so let me put it in terms of like, so the curriculum would be like, you have to complete like, 160 hours to get your degree in computer science. And then the philosophy minor was like, you have to complete, an additional 20 hours specific to philosophy. And each class is like maybe 3 hours or something like that, right? And I don't know if this actually adds up, but whatever. That's kind of how it is. So I think like 7 or 8 additional classes. It's not really like too intense. Very like light splash into it, but I think honestly, like
that's
like
splash. Splashing philosophy into my computer science degree. I like that.
Yeah, I mean they're pretty similar, honestly. There's like a lot of logic based stuff, and that it makes sense. Like as a Magic player, that I'd be interested in like all that kind of critical thinking and things like that. So yeah,
awesome. Okay, I hope Death Ranger's curiosity has been satisfied here. As we mentioned, we won't go into well. Anyway, I've known you, I guess we both have kind of known you for, I want to say like 10 years, kind of like that, right? And we've cooperated, we've collaborated on a couple of things, like we produced the Legacy, like 2 seasons of the Legacy Premier League together and that kind of stuff. We did Eternal Weekend 2020 for Wizards together, and like I commentated some events that you have produced. And I want to say, I can't really say when was your proper transition, because for the first couple of years you were like a competitive player, right? Or like quite a lot of years. But then there was this cut where you started not attending the tournaments anymore, but you rather got interested in coverage, right? I think even for season 3 of Legacy Premier League, you were even just like behind the scenes for us. Like you basically like you picked up a lot. We gave you some tasks to organize, and then the next season you were in the stream and everything. So you very quickly grew into that and like very much outgrew anything I could ever do. So you had this insane growth as a producer that like impressed me so much. Where did all of this come from? I guess that's also part of the question that like Ming Empire sent us. Where is your passion for producing coverage coming from? Is that something that just like came up at some moment where I felt like, hey, this is what I want to do with my quote-unquote Magic career, or was it always something that you were passionate about?
Awesome question, and the answer is I've thought about this a bunch, and the only way I can really explain it is it just comes from like a natural like feeling of empathy and sort of appreciation for what was done in the past and hoping that it can continue to exist in the future, right? Like it's yeah, I mean, like, so we've already talked about it, right? Where that golden era of just like, Star City Games coverage where you had 2 tournaments every weekend, anywhere, anytime, any place, you could find it. And it was such a pleasure to watch all those matches of Magic, right? Not just for Legacy players, but for all players. And I was really sad when we came back from the pandemic for the first SCG Con in the casino, Valley Forge in Philadelphia or Pennsylvania. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. And when I talked to them, I was like, well, they were like, well, there's not going to be any coverage. We're not doing that anymore. And I was like, what? What do you mean there's not going to be? This is a $30,000 event. The games here are going to be remarkably, fascinating and like a high stakes, and it's going to be it's a part of Magic history. And you're telling me that all the thousands and thousands of people who want to know what's going on here beat by beat, they're just not going to be able to find out. And to me, that was just like, I was horrified. I mean, like, like imagine telling that to a younger Anu or younger Julian or younger Callum, like, hey, you don't get to watch the conclusion of this event that that you're invested in, like, this format that you've poured your heart and soul into. Sorry. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do something about it. So I walked up to Pennsylvania. I had my deck of Magic cards, and then I had you
walked up to Pennsylvania?
I mean,
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I just traveled. I went there for the event. I brought my phone, and I brought a backup phone, and then I brought a literal, just like a selfie stick that looks oddly
like a makeshift tripod.
It's far more sexual than that, I guess, but whatever. Yeah, it's what I saw on Amazon. It was cheap, and I was like, all right, let's do it. So that event was basically me watching Jarvis play Modern for 9 rounds, because that was what, you know, I was allowed to do. When I spoke with Jared Silva, who is just incredible, by the way, like has the things that I do at the events that I go to would not be possible without him. He's also even given me, like, you know, advice for things like that too. But yeah, he was like, all right, well, you know, I don't, and at the time, like a year, like almost 2 years ago, we did not know each other. And this is something that I've been pretty decent at over the years, as I have learned to sort of cold call people and sort of like, I know this is going to...
You have to, right?
Yeah.
Especially like in Magic context, like there's so many disconnected communities that you have to like bridge a gap to just like get into and make something happen, I feel like. Yeah,
it's just like, it was a necessary skill for me. Like that's how I got my gig at Channel Fireball for a while. That's how I kind of just broke into coverage. That's how I also sort of approached a bunch of other people. Just said like, hey, look, this is me. I want to do this. This is how I make value for you. Can we make something happen? A lot of rejection and a couple successes, and you know, that's kind of how it began. But I did the same thing with Jared, and I walked up to him and was like, hey, I've got this tripod, I've got this camera, you know, what can I do? And he's like, I can't do this for you, but I will let you set up, you know, like a clip-on tripod to the table, and you can watch one player for the day, and that's it, you know? And for me, I was like, okay, well, you know, that's not exactly what I was going for, but I'll take what I can get. And from there, it kind of just like snowballed, because then the next time I was like, hey, Jared, look, this is what we did last time, and this is what was really good about it. I'd like to try something new. I'd like to push the envelope a little bit. And he was like, you know, reluctant, but eventually over time, I sort of proved that I was I'd like to think that I proved that I was competent and that I knew what I was doing, and I would play within the boundaries of the rules, and slowly things started to grow. The most important thing is just like the reason that I wanted to do it, and I think that's like the question that's being asked, is like just literally so that I could share the experience with everybody who couldn't be there, you know.
Ooh,
that's it.
That's so wholesome. That's way more wholesome than I ever imagined. I thought like you were maybe gonna say something like, oh, I just like I got a taste for it, I loved it, and like perfect. Like I guess that's a little bit more from me when I do this, like on a much smaller scale, of course. I felt like, dude, I just like love producing something, and then people watch it, and then they like it, and then I want to work on it and make it better. But for you, it sounds like it's kind of that, but also this whole idea of like continuing the legacy of legacy, in that case.
Yeah.
And that's just like so cool. I literally didn't know that. You know, you remind me of someone you probably don't know, and a lot of listeners don't know. But especially when you say you want to continue the legacy of the game, and you want to put that out there, and you produce it all by yourself, and like you maybe break even if you're lucky, and stuff like that. You remind me so much of Zero, who runs the Bombastic Star League for StarCraft Brood War. He basically does the same. You know, Brood War is like not really supported by Blizzard anymore and stuff, but he's been keeping like the international scene alive for many, many years now. And he does basically what you're doing, except for like he runs it online, because like it's an online tournament, and everything you say, it sounds so much like that's coming out of him, and that actually makes me wonder: have you drawn, like in your whole production design, your ideas of how you want to make your stream or the broadcast? Do you draw inspiration from any other games or communities?
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, so I'm not into StarCraft as much as, you know, more enlightened individuals are, because StarCraft is a sick game. I'm just too dumb to really understand what's going on. I do look at League of Legends a lot. I do look at what, like, a lot of the content that Riot Games produces, and then also, like, you know, if there are other card games and things like that, I try to learn. So like literally last night I was watching like the Pokemon regional championships to see how they sort of like display their game and what could be useful for my take on Magic coverage from there. Like I think there's a lot of sampling that I've done that is you know, it's been very, very helpful. I think for example, like the overlay that I have right now that you'll see like literally in like the regional championships, even for the US, and Eternal Weekends and things like that, it's very close to like Smash, like Melee. That's another game that I've taken a lot from, right? Where they have to deal with a 4x3, game piece, like, which is like their screen, and then they have to fill in everything on the left and the right to make it look as charming as it does. And I'm not quite there yet with the full polish of an entire production team, like BTS or whatever, but the ideas are definitely there, and I've toyed around with a lot of things, like for example, like when I watched the Pro Tour, I was like, okay, well, I generally prefer like the left and right calibration of the players rather than the top and bottom, because it's just like what I grew up on and like what I personally like. But it was really interesting to see, like, okay, well, this is maybe what their take is on coverage, and Magic coverage isn't something static. It can be like, something very robust and malleable. And so I don't know. I think the reality is like, I am not someone who comes up with great ideas, but I am capable of identifying what does function, and then like, sort of mishmashing a solution that is either similar or like, takes aspects and then sort of turns into something else, right? I don't know, maybe like quote unquote fair use or whatever is the way of doing it. But I also think that's just like, for when it comes to a lot of content, like if you like something that you watch and you're trying to create something, I don't think that I don't think it's like a sin to be like, okay, I'll do something like this and I'll put my own tweak on it and make it, customize it to me, make it mine, and then air that. That's kind of like what I did with the coverage, right? It's just like, okay, well, this is a little piece that I like from what Star City is doing. This is a little piece that I like from Melee. This is what I like from, League of Legends. And it's still, there's a lot ongoing. I'll give you an example. Like, for example, from League of Legends, one thing that I really like that they do is like the way they incorporate audio into their broadcasts. So, when they have the casters talking over the game, then they transition over to like the news desk. At any time the news desk, when they're talking normally, there's no audio in the background, but when they cut to a clip from the game that they just watched, you can hear like some really cool, like, electronica or something like that. And I kind of feel like the Magic equivalent would be like, you have casters who are talking about, hey, welcome to the match, blah blah blah, let's take a look at the deck list. And when you go to the deck list, you have like a cool little bit of intro to sort of like, snap the audience back into things like that, right? Like that's kind of what it
keeps it like a lot more dynamic, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. That's a great way of putting it. Keeping the stream dynamic, exciting. I know like audio is one of my weak spots, and so like I could go on and on and on, but like that's kind of,
I was going to ask you about that, because I remember you once messaged me and you sent me like a couple of like songs, and you were like, hey, do you think we could just like run this in the background of like a broadcast or something? And you have so many ideas that nobody has ever done. And like we probably don't hear about the ones that were not so great, but you're really like, you're on the cutting edge of producing Magic coverage, and I love that. Especially this whole idea, we always talk about in content creation, like make the stuff that you want to see, that you want to listen to, that you want to consume. Like don't make the stuff that you think somebody else, like make the kick-ass cool stuff that you want to see, and there's probably going to be a big audience for that. And I think you very much embody that, and I love that.
Yeah, I think so too. I think like do good work, and then you'll reap the benefits or whatever kind of deal. Like if I'm not convinced that my product is good, like why would I ever market it? You know what I mean? Like I think like looking back at like what I did the past 2 years, and I know we don't want to talk too much about like the past 2 years, but like 2022 was just about proving that I had a product that was functional, and then 2023 was about putting it on the market and seeing what I could do financially to sort of recoup the insane amount of money that I spent on all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Can I ask you one quick question? Because there's a name that always comes up, and whenever I ask you about, hey, how did you do this? Like, how did you come up with this? There's always one person you tell me about that I never see present in any stream, podcast, article, whatever. But like when I talk to people, not only you, they mention his name. Who is BradleyJX?
You remember the Swiss Triangle website? Callum, do you know about it?
I remember it a bit.
Yeah. If you look at the URL, it's like swisstriangle.bradleyjx.com or something. And this is what I used like way back. I mean, Jarvis had been sending this to me. Jarvis, you had been sending this to me for many times, and just to calculate, can I make top 8 if I go X and 2? What needs to happen? I can't. All right, I'll drop.
I did use it quite a few times at events because I'm way too dumb to work out normally.
So. Me too.
I like that Callum likes to imply that he was close to top 8s.
Hey, look,
Callum's a killer. I played against him.
Callum wins the first round. He's like, okay, how many more wins do I need? How many more? Come on, let's check the Swiss triangle.
If this is 3 rounds and I've won the first.
But yeah, BradleyJX is his name is Jordan Baker. He is legitimately, in my mind, the GOAT of coverage. Like he is like, taught me everything that I know functionally, whether it comes to what good design elements are, or literally like how to set up a network of computers so that I can do like the modern technologies for broadcasts and things like that. Like he has the biggest brain I have ever seen. And he just like enjoys what he does, doesn't really care to put himself really out there, which, to each their own. I respect that a lot. But he's fantastic. Just to give you an idea of where you may have seen Jordan. So Jordan has worked in, even before, but like the channel Fireball GP era, and then during the set championships, like when we were during COVID, he was also one of the lead producers there. Even today, you can find him working on things like the Mox Arena Championships. He's one of the most valuable people that I've hired for the regional championship team. He is like a godsend, and he is just very, very good at what he does. I think one thing that I've learned about Magic is that if you find somebody who is very good at like a skill non-endemic to Magic, so let's say, for example, like the video editing, but then also very good at Magic, like that person is instantly an insanely valuable resource.
I can very much imagine that. And is he a freelancer, or does he work for it sounds like he's a freelancer, right?
I don't want to go too much into like his personal stuff without his but
yeah,
basically
sure.
like
okay. I was just wondering whether he's like working for Wizards or something, or how
the goal of the game right now is to make sure that he doesn't get a job, because once he does, we like literally if he gets a job, I shit you not, I think coverage as we know it would just radically change.
That's the biggest endorsement you can put out there.
I
think hope you stay unemployed so we can like.
yeah. I wish from the bottom of my heart that I just had enough money to hire Jordan full time so that we could just continue doing all the cool shit that we do. But it's gonna take some time, ramp up time, snowball time, whatever it might be. Hopefully, I don't know. Who knows? Like a couple of years down the line, like I don't know, man. Sometimes I just wonder, is like Magic even gonna be around like in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And so. Anyways, I would love to work with Jordan for, the entirety of my time with Magic, because he is just the most resourceful and most amazing person that I have had the pleasure to work with.
That's like something great to say about him, because I've heard so much about him. I've never interacted with him, and when I go to his Twitter and I look for like shared Twitter followers and stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, this is like the goats of coverage, right? This is the secret cabal. Like you're talking to like a real one, but when they follow Jordan, that's just like how it feels to me, because you've been only so full of praise for him, and it's
like he's in that tier IMO of like he's not like if there's a broadcast, you're familiar with the faces you see, like BDM and like Rich and like Rashad Miller. He's like at that level, but just like behind the curtain.
So that makes him so much more interesting, especially since he stays out of it. Maybe okay. I was gonna say maybe we're gonna invite him to the next episode, but yeah. I just want to learn so much about that stuff, because like with so many things that you do in coverage, for example, those time, it's not even time shifted matches, right? How do you call that concept where you start the tournament, let's say 2 rounds, quote unquote, late, and then you use those pre-recorded matches to basically fill in all the dead air that would otherwise be like need to be bridged by the casters, or literally just a be right back screen. So that's for example, your coverage for the Eternal Weekends. I think you said you saved the community something like 3 hours of dead air.
Oh, that was like only like day one. Like by the end of day one, we had saved about 3 hours of just dead air, which kind of makes sense because the tournament started at 9 and we started at 12, so we saved that much time basically. The phrase that I would use to describe it is like asynchronous. So you have a broadcast schedule that runs unlinked asynchronously from like the tournament schedule, which is fantastic because then you get a lot more agency into when and how and why and where and what you're showing on your broadcast, and most importantly, you're not shackled by the downtime of Miracles players going to time in round 1, basically,
Yeah, we had that like in Prague a couple of times, that we had like something like 25 minutes overtime or something. It was just for players it was horrible, but for coverage, like, because you had that special system, is that like something that Bradley came up with or something?
He's the one who showed it to me. I think we were doing it. Honestly, we did it in Atlanta in 2022. That was December, and then 2-3 months later in Philly, February. That's when they did it for the first time in the Pro Tour.
And you're gonna keep doing that, right? Because
I think
it feels amazing.
I think it's the future. I mean, being it like me personally, as like a director, as a manager, I do not want to have to deal with like 25 minutes or maybe less, but like of just like not having content, like that is people just leave. This is the thing with Magic, right? It's like it is for the non-enfranchised, it is not the most exciting game, and even for the enfranchised, like you cannot make a be right back screen that exciting. You cannot fill up dead air that much before people are like, all right, when is the next match of Magic? Like I'm getting restless waiting for it. So these kind of technologies I think are fantastic because they just let you like they keep things snappy. They keep people invested and they also like save metrics, and that translates to money, blah blah blah. Like the benefits are endless. I think it's the future of coverage. Yeah,
it very much feels like it. I mean, you save money on, let's say, production, like even just like stuff like paying commentators, right? There's just like less time for that. And I gotta say, commentating Eternal Weekend North America, I just loved that there was no downtime. Like maybe like a couple of minutes here and there to go to the bathroom, whatever. But you didn't have that, and I did not expect that. But you didn't have that feeling of, okay, now you're like almost like shutting down as a commentator for 10 or 15 minutes, and then you have to get back up and get back typed again. Whereas if it's a continuous like action atmosphere, it just, at least to me, it felt a lot better.
Yeah, the adrenaline is still, it's always there, and you don't have to like ramp back up to it, right? Like it's exactly. Always, yeah, you got the blood rushing. I feel you on that. Yeah,
cool. So we have a couple more questions, and first of all, I'm super curious. Like, when did this idea come to you that you want to cover like both Eternal Weekends? And was there even a time where you were trying to reach out to Japan to cover even the third one?
So the idea crossed my mind after 2022 Eternal Weekend. So I did do coverage of that. And that one was a whole debacle where I had to basically fight the unions, pay a bunch of money.
Oh my god, that shit! I remember.
Yeah. I don't. That was not the most fun. But like at the end of the day, like there are a lot of events that I can go to. There are a lot of events I choose not to go to. And Eternal Weekend is one of the events. Like Legacy is my baby, right? Like it's all of our babies, right? Like I guess we're in that case somehow related. Or okay, this is getting weird. But
we just three Legacy dads.
You get what I'm saying? Like we all love Legacy. So. We all love Vintage, and so like that is the one event of the year where I will show up and I will do what I can to share the experience with everyone who can't be there, right? And I think that's I don't know. I think that's like I knew at the end of 2022 that I wanted to, in some part, some way, some fashion, be involved with 2023 productions for Eternal Weekend specifically, and everything that I learned in 2022 I was able to apply to 2023 to sort of make myself available and an integral part of that event.
That's cool. And at that point, did you already know that you not only would do North America, but that you wanted to push to also do Europe? Because I know the previous year, Europe actually didn't get a paper event because the word on the street was that none of the tour operators, I was going to say, dude, I'm so into stupid tourism, none of the tournament organizers wanted to host the tournament. So did you think like in the next year, if Europe has a tournament, I want to be there?
The part of the thought in my mind was like, yeah, like some people had asked me in 2022, it was like, hey, are you going to Europe next year? And I was like, you know what, that would be really cool. And then the light bulb kind of like, clicked, and I was like, all right, well, let's see if we can make it happen. Honestly, it wasn't until quite late into the year, I think it was MagicCon Vegas, where I was actually able to set up the connection. And by the way, like if anyone is trying to create content, like let me tell you, these MagicCon events are like you just like I highly recommend going to these events just to meet important people that you can network with, because a lot of my job is not actually creating the OBS backend or buying the cameras or things like that. It is convincing somebody that what I am doing is valuable And that, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like networking, being in the right place at the right time, getting lucky is more important than a lot of stuff. I mean, you play to your outs, you do the work beforehand so you can put yourself in a position to get lucky. Basically, it's like real life is just like playing Miracles in Magic, right? Like that's basically what it is.
I love that.
Yeah. And I don't know. Yeah. So I highly recommend going to these MagicCon events just if you're looking to like, collaborate or level up or do anything cool, because that's where like all the people are. They congregate and they make it. They're like they literally scream to you, "Hey, I'm here. Come say hi to me." But obviously like in the appropriate fashion. And so yeah,
it's different than like sending like some unsolicited message on like Twitter that gets lost in the spam folder anyway.
Yeah,
I guess
100%. Show your face, shake a hand, do all that sort of stuff.
Do you have a business card?
I don't, and I
think we talked about this in Prague, right? That you kind of want to get
one. Yes, I need one. I need one so badly because it's just like I need something that's like really sharp that says like whatever, I'm the CEO, bitch, or whatever. Is that from the social Facebook or whatever? The social network. Sorry, yeah. But no, yeah. I think that is it's important to be able to network, and this goes back to like the number of failures that I've had from cold calls or cold emails rather, I guess. Like I've learned that the most successful thing you can do is be next to someone and show them your value. That's in fact how I sort of got my role in like the regional championships is like, back in 2022, early on, I was just like traveling from place to place to place. One day I'm at the DreamHack tournament and I'm doing my own thing. And then, John Carter notices, and he's also just a fantastic person, who's done nothing but really help me get to where I am today and provide all of the sort of stuff that everyone gets to watch. Like, there's one person you can say thank you to, it's definitely him. And he was just like, "Hey, we have a top 8 tomorrow. Would you like to broadcast it?" I was like, "I'd love to. How do we do this?" And then he was like, "Well, you need to get the casters. You need to get the UI and the overlay and everything like that. We have nothing." And I was like, okay.
Okay. We got you, and we hope you got something.
Right, exactly, right? And so that's what I'm saying is like you put yourself in a position to get lucky. So he came to me with the opportunity after seeing what I had done, and I was like, "Well, I've done most of this work already. I'll give you my overlays. I'll find these people that are on site. We'll do something in person. Let's go." And within 3 hours, I had the whole thing ready to go for the next day.
The thing is, at that point, you really got to know what you're doing, right? At that point, you can't be like, "Okay, I think it's going to work that way." And that's where the whole part about like being prepared, right? You might not have the opportunity yet, but you are prepared in case it comes around.
I
love that.
Exactly, right? So like in Magic terms, like keep Terminus second from the top so that when your opponent overcommits, you're like, "Aha, I tricked you. It's actually there and not here." And then whatever. Anyways, this is a bad example, but like that kind of stuff, right? Like it's not easy. But like, that's why they say being, like better lucky than good. But the reality is like better lucky and also just be good too, just in case. You know what I mean? Like
that's just in case. It can't hurt you if you're also good. That's great, dude. But so I'm wondering, you did Prague now, you did Pittsburgh, both of those events. That was an insane amount of work and almost back to back, basically, right? You came to Prague, like we hung out there like for one night, and then you had to do basically, I want to say like 2.5 days of work, like almost constantly. I think I don't know if I can say this. Didn't you actually like fall asleep or like take a nap during one of the rounds in Prague because you were so exhausted? I think you told me.
I did, yeah. The jet lag eventually caught up to me. Friday night, I think I slept for 3 hours before the main event in Legacy, and so fortunately, I was blessed to have Inigo around. So that's Runkor from whatever Discords, the Legacy community. I'll put it. The Impact Returns. Yes, that's
he's one of the co-organizers of Impact Returns. By the way, amazing tournament. You gotta be there next year, next summer.
Seasons coverage, ELM coverage as well. He was the one putting all the strings behind the scenes.
I kind of want to say like Inigo in many ways is the European version of Anuraag.
I agree.
Like not on the same level yet, but certainly when it comes to passion and dedication.
Yeah. I will tell you, the only thing holding him back is
Europe. It's just like the European Legacy scene is like a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, he can do everything I can do. He just needs, if he has the tools, he will operate with the same surgical precision that I can. Someone just needs to give it to him, and then I'm pretty sure he could basically do everything that, he understands everything. He's one of the few people that has demonstrated that, they understand, like, okay, this component works with this, I understand this, but how do I do this? And then when I answered a couple of his questions, like, I'm pretty sure, like, if you just yeah, if you just give him the cameras and the computers and stuff like that, he could literally do what I do. Like I full endorsement. Yeah.
Yeah, Inigo is amazing. I'm very much looking forward to the next Impact Returns. He already told me he wants to implement some of the stuff that he has learned from you, and I couldn't be more excited. So if anybody is wondering, check out Impact Returns. I'm certainly going to be there next year. It should be around July. Hopefully we can get a whole lot more, because that is basically the second biggest legacy tournament in Europe after Four Seasons, and we're gonna try to make it maybe almost as big, and certainly there's a lot of room and prizes and everything. So yes, the dedication is there, and we want to make sure that more people hear about it.
The events are intense. I mean, I'm looking back now at my log for like Pittsburgh, for example, and I have 45 hours over the 4 days. Like, it's at least 10 hours a day of work. You know, you wake up at 7, show up at 8, you stay until the very end. You know, you leave at 7 or 8 just in time for dinner, and then at the end of that, you're just exhausted. You just go to bed, you wake up the next day, you rinse, repeat, and then it's suddenly Sunday, everyone's gone, and you're like, well, I didn't get to hang out with people too much. I didn't get to play any games of Magic, but you know, I like the work that you do is just it's insane, right? So I don't know. Yeah, it is. It can get pretty intense at times.
And it's also like, I want to say, like, the responsibility, right? Because everything I've seen from you, it felt like it's, when it comes to organizing and running stuff, it's basically like a one-man show. Like, you don't have like an apprentice or something, right?
And I desperately need one. We could talk about that too. But yeah, I think that's basically it, right? Which is like, you know, direction, production, someone who understands how to like, basically building the stack from the ground up myself. You know, I know all the ins and outs, and then keeping all the pieces. There's a lot going on, and I don't know. I'm only like, I'm 31, and I feel like sometimes like there's so much stuff going on that like I'll even forget, like, oh, I forgot to, you know, press a button that'll capture the standings for this round, or like, you know, something like that, right? Like it does catch up, and I think that's the other thing too, which is like people understand that, you know, okay, you're working on this. And you get some leeway because, you know, you're not like a multi-million-dollar corporation. You're just a guy.
You're literally one guy.
Yeah. But there's been enough help. You know, there are a lot of cool resources out there. Shout out to also like Jeff Foster, who's, you know, as cracked as Jordan when it comes to coverage, has been an integral part of all that sort of stuff. It's I'm not alone. You know, that's what I've learned over time. And so, yeah.
Okay, so let's actually get into that apprentice part, because I think a lot of people would be like, oh, yes, I want to do what Anuraag is doing. And I think most of those probably severely underestimate like the commitment and the time investment and everything. And so is that something that you are almost actively reaching out to people for by now? Because you already also told me, like in Prague, I guess we can talk about that you also have some life changes coming up next year that might make it harder for you to fully commit. So at that point, you really need somebody to join your, I was going to say company. I guess you run a company at that point once you get somebody on. So is that something that you already are actively working towards, or is that still a future project?
It's definitely something that I'm working on actively right now, and I don't know what a good solution is because, well, to be quite honest, it's a lot. Like if I had to explain my one trip, right? So, you know, here's like how my week goes, right, for coverage. Or I'll Thursday I will.
Yeah, walk us like through a typical coverage weekend for Anuraag does.
Yeah, sure. So Wednesday night, you know, you spend some time packing. Most of my bags are unpacked because I just came back from somewhere else. And so make sure that I'm ready to go. Thursday, you know, I have a flight that leaves at whatever time. I have to quickly finish up work, make sure that, you know, I don't have any loose ends or anything like that. And then before I know it, I'm kind of on my way, lugging 200 pounds of literal audio video equipment. Just I think it's getting heavier and heavier each time because I'm always adding like one new thing or one like this. But at this point, it's just like it's a pain in the ass to have to drag, you know, for at least like a mile, I guess, of walking. Like, you know,
basically you got an entire studio set up.
Pretty much. Yeah, right? And so, like, this is the first thing that you're going to have to realize, right? Like, the sheer amount of physical effort, like, I mean, literally picking up and putting down and picking up and putting down stuff is just annoying. Someone has to put it together and someone has to tear it down. If you know, someone's going to do what I do, they'd have to be responsible for basically making sure that everything gets from point A to point B in completely safe status, but then also, you know, you can literally physically move all the items. And so that's Thursday. Thursday is just literally getting to where I need to go. Friday is waking up at 6 a.m., making sure that I am on site as early as I possibly can be, talking to the TO, making sure that they're aware that I'm here, that we're on the same page, lugging my 200 pounds of equipment, like picking it up, fitting it into the trunk of a car. By the way, which is kind of crazy that these small cars can hold like 4 suitcases together and a backpack that also weighs like, 40 pounds. I don't know. It's crazy. But you're like playing Tetris in real life kind of deal. But then slowly unpacking every single cable, wire, setting up, the overhead cameras, the hand cameras, all this sort of stuff. Then getting in and setting up your network of computers, pulling out all my hotspots and making sure they're all synced up. Like it's a lot. And that's basically what Friday is, right? It's like 7, 8, 9 hours of just like setting up, making sure like, factoring everything in. Like I don't want the glare to be there. I don't want this to be there or that to be there. Making sure that there was one time I was at an SCG con where like I was setting up, I walk away for 15 minutes to go get a bite to eat, come back and I noticed that there's like literal rubble like that fell from the ceiling. And I was like, and I was like, what the hell is this? And so I had to move my entire setup. There's also like, collaborating with other creators, who want to do the same thing, right? Like for Flesh and Blood, for example, like one time I had to literally, I was halfway set up. Someone came and they were like, I can't work from this spot. Can I move to where you are? So I was like, you know what? All right, fine. I disconnected everything that I had, moved it over a little bit, and then reset up, right? Like here's the first thing, right? It's like nothing ever goes according to plan. And so having a lot of leeway to sort of hedge for that is very important. But that's like a generic thing in life, right? Like I guess. Mm-hmm. And then Saturday, Sunday, those are the show days. Once again, like wake up at 6, go to bed after like an hour after I've eaten, maybe at most. But I'm usually like one of the last people to leave the venue hall on Sunday night. Tear down takes like an hour, 2 hours or something like that. And then Monday morning I'm flying back. So like, and Monday morning I'm flying back with the same amount of luggage. Also trying to figure out like, this is another big thing too, is like, how do you pay for each weekend, right? Because if you think about the costs, right, you have to pay for airfare, you have to pay for internet, you have to pay for casters, you have to pay for hotel, you have to pay for like baggage and things like that. And like I would say each show that I go to costs roughly $3,000.
That's basically coming out of your pocket, and then you have to recoup that somehow.
Yeah. And so I have to figure out like ways to find sponsors and like, cut costs and things like that. And honestly, like it's fine. Like I mentioned way earlier, 2022 was, MVP. And then this year is, minimum viable product. And then this year was mostly about like marketing and making sure that if I spend $3,000 that I'm not making zero back. Right. And so,
yeah, I was going to say like that 3,000, that's like production cost, but that doesn't include like your time spent on the site for like 4 days almost.
Yes, and that's the other thing too, right? Like if you think about what I'm getting for my labor, I'm getting paid zero. So for somebody who wants to do all of the stuff I do, I have thought about this a lot, and what I am doing is certifiably insane. I am literally.
I like how you sat down, you thought this through, and you came to the conclusion: I am insane. I need somebody to work with me.
Right, and so, and let me tell you this too, right? Like, that's what I was saying when I say like some of these names that I've mentioned to you, like Jordan, Jeff, Inigo, these people, they are also insane. They just like coverage.
Oh my God.
Like, yeah, like you. For me to like find somebody who wants to do the stuff, I don't think there is somebody out there who I don't even know how to like know about this without like literally sitting down and talking to someone, being like, hey, like this is very intense of a workload. If you want to do this, you are basically not going to make any money. You are basically I don't know, just like going to be working a ridiculously intense amount of hours. I don't know what to give to you outside of the satisfaction of knowing that what you are doing is greatly helping a community of people that are very, very near and dear to all of us.
But I guess the most valuable thing that you can offer is experience. Like it sounds like a shitty version of exposure, but like experience in running these events, which kinds of like pitfalls to watch out for and stuff like this. This is like becoming a robust content creator or producer. in that sense. And I think that could be worth a lot to people who maybe eventually want to go further. But of course, you also don't want to teach somebody and then they leave you after like a couple of months again. So
right. Let me tell you this, right? Like I worked one weekend with Inigo. I've seen the work he's done, and if only he lived in the U.S., I would be hiring him constantly for all the RCs and like the Eternal Weekends that I'm running, because I know now that he is capable, and I know who to connect him to continue doing this sort of work. Right? That's just like one of those things where it's like networking is invaluable. I also don't believe in paying with exposure. I want to give people literal dollars so that, like to compensate them for their time. But this is one of those things where just like the entire operation, like the way I have been doing it, I have not been receiving nearly as much money as I am spending, as I've made very apparent, as a lot of people already know. But there are a couple other intangibles out there. Like, I mean, like I am telling you, like exposure, it doesn't pay the bills, but once you meet the right person, like in this industry, you're basically unlocking doors and a lot of that sort of stuff. And I personally don't feel comfortable, despite like being able to offer that, to tell somebody, hey, like I can't pay you. So that's why I've been very hesitant to be like, hey, yeah, I'm going to accept an apprentice, or I don't even know if I want to like phrase it that way, but like a partner almost that. Yeah,
I was going to say like it sounds more like a startup that you're looking to get somebody in on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of, right? Like Will is Will Hall is another person who is also insane. Like the guy doesn't take payment for coverage in a lot of instances, and I'm just like, that's the kind of vibe. Like, the reality is like, okay, this is just like me. This is what I've learned in 2 years. There is basically very little, or it is very hard to make money out of Magic, right? This is I mean, like we've seen like, Twitter drama by like vendors and things like that. When we think about like coverage too, we know how much like Cedric has spoken, for example, about like the costs of coverage and why it is difficult to sustain. I think, the way I operate coverage is certainly like a solution that's much cheaper than having an entire staff. It's not exactly as polished, sure, but like you get 90% of the features for like 10% of the costs kind of deal. But like it is very hard to make money. Like, I mean, you've seen your streamer analytics from Twitch. You know what ad revenue numbers are like. And that's my thought too. I just chuckle and I'm like, all right, well, what's important in Magic? How do you actually break in? And unfortunately, it is like literally just getting to know the right people at the right time by getting lucky and doing good work. And that's where it's just like it's kind of annoying, because this is a specific instance where exposure actually does get you really far. But again, like I feel like if I'm not sending someone a paycheck, and like in addition to whatever other value I can provide them, then that's just like, it feels a little unethical. So I don't know. That's like one bucket of things. And then I guess this is one way that I have maybe sort of recouped value, quote unquote. But it is spending the last 2 years functionally developing my brand. As someone who was not
Can I interrupt you there?
Yeah.
I can't believe that you still don't have like a logo.
Actually, I do, but I don't. It's kind of weird.
Oh, it's like on your invoices or stuff, but nobody ever sees it.
Like
I want you to have a logo so badly, because I think you'd have like a really cool one.
Oh, you don't know what it is? It's like Sensei's Divining Cup with 2 wings for Entreat the Angels. It's like a very, I could say, I'll send it. It's not, I probably make a better one too. It's something I've definitely thought about, because I definitely want to have like a sticker where like if I slap it on something, people will be like, oh, that's the coverage guy who plays Legacy or something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
I think people like very much identify with you, because you are our, I guess angel who comes into like, for us it's Legacy, right? We're a Legacy podcast, but even like Magic as a whole had this, as you mentioned, post-COVID emptiness of coverage, and then you came in, and like you are far from only streaming Legacy, right? You stream all these RCs and what have you. Like you go to Canada, and you do so much. And I think especially Magic as a community, at least for the competitive players, values that quite a lot. So people like to identify and bond with stuff. So I could see that being something that
no, I
you
definitely
might want to expand on.
That's the thing that I've also realized too. So sort of transitioning from like, okay, well, I'm not making money doing this, so what else can I get out of it? How can I make this worth my time? And that is sort of like that brand development aspect of it all, which is like letting people know that I exist. I think it's funny because I feel like there are so many other people who deserve way more recognition than me, but part of me being a content creator since like 2017, like I put my face out there and I tweet a lot about like, this is my struggle right now, like, this is what it is, and people see it, people hear it, people know it, people share it, and the reality is like this all applies to a lot of other people too. Like it's not just me, but I do think fundamentally that like the brand development aspect of it all is probably one of the key factors for why I continue to do it. Like it is actually something that I can, it's a non-tangible, like you can't like hold it, but like it is something that does add up, and slowly over the past 2 years, like it's funny. I'll share you like my metrics, right? So from 2017 to 2021, I gained about 7,000 viewers or 7,000 followers on Twitch, right? That's like 4 or 5 years and you only get 7,000. The next year I gained 7,000 followers. And the year after that, I gained 7,000 followers. And that sort of tells you like, all right, A, the work that you're doing, the transition is very valuable. People want to watch it, but then also B, that like, this is like a tangible, this is something that I can market and sell to somebody else. So I can tell them, hey, look, I have a community of 20,000 people who are going to watch, or, who will get an alert saying, hey, this guy has gone live and he's providing this kind of content. And then bang, your logo is there or something like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
like you can branding has value. I don't think I need to really get into the nitty gritty of that. But it's
something you feel like you have more potential to expand on, I guess.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think has made the giant red number in the back of my mind like sort of justifiable is that like people are starting to like understand and learn and know and see and all that sort of stuff.
But you say that, but when I was traveling to Eternal Week in Prague, I ended up in a part of the train where there were like a lot of legacy players, and I was just like listening as they were also talking about you. And some of them actually mentioned that like, I don't know where this information is coming from because I know it's not true. They said like a year or two ago, you quit your day job, you committed fully to Magic, and like this is everything you do all the time. And then I was like, no, I think he still has like a regular day job. He was like, there's absolutely no way this guy has a day job. Have you looked at how much he does? I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure he still has like a job. I think a lot of people actually don't know that. Like you do all of that on top of being married, on top of having a proper day job. Like this is, yeah, you are certified insane.
Yeah. No, it's intense. I mean, I am a manager for my team. I have a couple people that I work with. We for tech consulting. It's pretty intense. I wake up at 6 a.m. for a meeting every day, and then my day ends at 2 p.m. for work because I'm the West Coast. I work East Coast hours, so they're 3 hours into the future, and then from 2 o'clock until like 8 o'clock, I'm either rendering a video. Maybe I'll get a couple of hours of like League of Legends in with my friends or something like that, or I'll hang out with my
free time. Okay.
Yeah. Like, but then it's just like after that, it's like even today, this morning, I woke up and I was like, all right, well, I need to render a video that's due on the 1st. I need to create an outline for this event that I want, this timeless event that I want to host next week. I need to, reach out to this Wizards contact about this. And then I also need to make sure that the deliverable for my client, for my actual job, is going through. And speaking of which, let me just check my Slack, make sure I didn't actually get a message in the meantime, right? Like it is pretty nonstop. Sometimes I kind of wonder if I'm doing too much, but I enjoy being busy, I think, and it's a lot. It's a challenge because, like I mentioned before, right? Like a lot of the stuff that I've done for Magic, I literally could not afford this if I wasn't, working my full-time job outside of Magic, because the reality is just simply Magic doesn't really pay. There are very few circumstances where it does.
Honestly, like I sometimes wonder, the most profitable type of Magic content is actually podcasts. At least if you're like at a pretty high tier. I mean, yeah, if you're like the top YouTube creators, like I don't know, if you're Brian, what's his name, the Tolarian Academy guy and stuff, like if you're on that level, yes. But I think other than that, when I look at some of the money like some of the top podcasts make, I feel like that's actually the way to go. But I wish like there was like this magic trick that you could pull, and all of a sudden magic grows tenfold, and then like everybody's gonna like come to you with the best offers to produce their events. But we are not there. Maybe we will be there at some point. I literally don't know. I wonder, like, is there some feeling inside of you that you feel like you're positioning yourself in case magic ever blows up even more, and then you want to be there, and you don't want to be the guy who quit 2 years ago, and then like that opportunity has passed? Are there any kind of ambitions to maybe make that full time?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to go full time with this. Part of the reason why I continue doing it, you mentioned it too, is like I just enjoy doing it, right? Like, yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it's like to provide value to people. But like you mentioned, right, you make a product, people enjoy it, that inspires you to continue working on it, right? So that's kind of where I am with this as well, right? So this is like I do enjoy what I do. I would love to do this more. The reality is that like it just pays pennies compared to what I actually need from it. And unfortunately, until that changes, I don't see myself. Okay, so here's the thing that like I'm gonna throw this out there because like I haven't really talked about it. I am expecting a kid in June, and I'm very excited for it. It's going to change my life entirely. But beyond like the excitement of I'm going to be a father, there's a lot of like I think like reasonable trepidation that comes with like being responsible for an entire human being, right? Like I learned yesterday that like when babies are born, there's literally no skull in certain parts of their head, and that thought to me is morbidly terrifying because I know I'm a clumsy goof. You know what I mean?
That's adorable, actually.
Yeah. Like I learned the other day, you cannot feed babies water because then they won't drink milk, and that was something that I was like, wait, what? You know what I mean? Like, so like me being a father.
Like you have this approach that you had to like learning miracles now to raising a child. I love that. It's like
yeah. Right.
Up all the information out there.
Yeah, just like okay, there. I can feel a burp coming out. All right, now that means T-3 turns until I have to change the diaper or something, right? Like I'll activate it on their end step or something. I don't know. Okay. But yeah, that's my next chapter basically, and it's a chapter that I am very excited to move into. It definitely does mean sort of putting a pause on the amount of effort that I'm putting into the rest of my life. And so yeah, we'll see where that goes. But basically. Sorry, just rewinding a little bit. It is certainly like a task to balance everything and sort of figure out what is like the best way to sort of optimize all these balls that I'm juggling, and also making sure that we're making progress.
Okay, so here's an idea. After your child is born, like your entire family, you just move to Europe, and then you also have Inigo there, and then there's like so many great tournaments that would benefit from your presence here, and then you're gonna make it work that way.
I'm literally taking notes here. Move to Europe is on my list now. Yeah.
Perfect. We'll already start looking for a house here. We'll figure out which place you like the best. No, but seriously, I would love to see you at Four Seasons at Impact Returns someday. I mean, it's gonna only get harder next year after like you're having a lot more commitments, of course. But yeah, maybe we'll see, dude. I have like we're about to kind of wrap this up now, but I'm very curious about one thing. We got a bunch of questions. We'll touch on them in a moment. But my personal question was, what was the biggest difference between working Eternal Weekend North America and Eternal Weekend Prague? Like the difference between, I don't know, like Europe and North America, or those specific events, anything involved with that? Was this the first time you've done a European production? I think so. Was there anything that jumped out at you where you were like, oh yeah, this is like totally different?
Yeah, so okay. I will be.
Feel free to shit on us if that's
not shitting case. On you, but I will be honest, and I will be politely critical. So let's talk about the first thing. The first thing was like flying to Europe. I was terrified the entire way through that I would like lose my bags at some point, and then the entire production would get shut down. I will say, to me, it kind of felt like the scope of the assignment was a little lost on some of the partners that I was working with. I don't know if they actually expected to get like 2,000, almost 2,000 viewers for an Eternal broadcast, and if they did, there are a couple elements in planning that I think could have been a little bit better. I'm still very grateful for all the support that they offered and the sort of collaboration that we did, but I don't know, the scale, the size of the operation was kind of lost. I think when I was working in the US specifically with Card Titan, their team, they did a great job at sort of like understanding like the complexity of the assignment and the impact and the scale and the scope of things. So like they realized like, hey, you know, like, okay, if you are not able to, you know, do this sort of thing, we will either find someone to help you with it or assign more budget to you to sort of find a way to solve the problem, right? Like this is one of those things where you can literally just like throw cash at the problems, and the cash will translate into bodies, and then bodies will translate into a solution. I think in Europe, it did feel like a very preliminary thing. Like the idea of coverage with my partners was like,
it wasn't more of a, I guess we'll have it thing.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It wasn't like a, hey guys, like this is our flagship event, our flagship broadcast or something like that. Like let me put it for example this way, right? Like the week before the event, Ultimate Guard had like a creator clash event. I think it was like an arena, and it was going over like a couple formats, and you know, the viewership from this event alone completely it completely outperformed that creator clash. But I feel like the marketing for the creator clash was like way more significant than what we had for Eternal Weekend, right? And Eternal Weekend is also like I feel like I if I have to tell somebody what Eternal Weekend is, maybe they just like haven't been to one before, or they don't know, like, you know, like that it is like the premier Eternal event of the year, right? Like this is what everybody tunes into at the end of the season to sort of be a part of. It is like the one thing that we get as legacy and vintage players, right? And so like I feel like that may have been like lost a little bit, but
I think that's actually the biggest problem, or at least it had been the biggest problem for Eternal Weekend in Europe once it started being a thing in like I think 2016. Because in Europe, that thing that you described, that was Bazaar of Moxen. Like Bazaar of Moxen was like equal in size, sometimes like double, triple the size of the actual Eternal Weekend. And everybody in Europe was like, yeah, this is the place to be. And then Bazaar of Moxen went away. And a couple of years later, we got Eternal Weekend. And in Europe, that wasn't really that well known. Like, yeah, all the like top competitive people, they knew about it and they went to it. But even like a lot of dedicated people who played like, I guess Bazaar of Moxen or like Ovino Ganon, which we had before, they did not go to the first Eternal Weekends just because it hadn't fully arrived. And that's why I was so blown away by the attendance that we had this year. And I think this was the first year that Eternal Weekend really fully arrived in Europe. And I talked to a couple of my local friends who did not attend, who said, okay, after watching this, I will attend next time. And I mean, that's a big part of the value that you bring to that thing through streaming it. Because without a stream, it's just like a couple of numbers you read online.
Yeah, it helped the hype so much. Like, I think the numbers are just going to get bigger for next year. And it's a huge part because of the coverage, for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that's something that's really interesting to me. So like, I don't really have to explain to you what the value of coverage is, right? You know how important coverage is as a player. What I do need to learn to explain better is to all the clients and the customers out there what the value of coverage is and why it makes sense to spend, you know, my cost in coverage. Because like I don't know if I can give you too many numbers, but like let's say like the amount of like value that I provided was 10x the cost that I charged effectively for you know, Eternal Weekend Europe. And that's one of those things where it's just like, okay, like, yes, those are like theoretical numbers and like, you know, like industry standards, but then also at the end of the day, the company is going to be like, well, okay, like, yeah, I got this much marketing value, but how much did it convert to sales? How many people actually bought products, right? And so I guess what we could do as consumers of coverage to really support coverage is like literally like if someone is sponsoring coverage, try to help them out. Like give them a reason to continue sponsoring coverage, right? If coverage is important. I think like literally say like I buy this type of like, you know, sleeve because they support paper coverage is a very powerful statement and a very good endorsement that companies they want to hear. They want to know that like what they're spending their money on is actually good. That kind of thing, right? And so like that's kind of the story. Like I know players understand how it's really valuable, but to teach like the TOs and those kind of people that, you know, when you spend like from a business perspective, and that, like again, I told you, 2023 was all about trying to become like financially stable and financially relevant. explaining to these people why that cost that they're not used to paying is necessary is a very, very tricky problem. And I don't even know, like, if you guys have ideas on how to do that, or anybody who is listening today, like, if you know how to convince a store that it's worth it to spend this money doing this type of activity, like, please, like, let me know. I am all for collaboration and like hearing out ideas and trying to like make things better and make things more persuasive. Right now, my strategy is like, I will show you numbers, I will show you dollar values, and hopefully that is enough to persuade you. But
yeah, I think in Europe it's especially hard because much more than any other region, like Europe is completely dominated when it comes to card size by card market, and if like to the point where people will buy from like really big stores, but they will not buy from the store directly, but they will buy from card market. And a lot of stores even shut down and they like only exist on card market anymore. And they're like still like some of the biggest in all of Europe, if not the world. And card market is just like, they have such a huge piece of the pie. And I think if you, and I guess with like having such insane market penetration comes less ambition to, hey, you want to put our name out there, because you already are the be-all, end-all, and maybe somebody's going to challenge you in the very long run, but it doesn't really feel like it's ever happening in our lifetime even. So if you approach those guys, it's really hard. I can't tell you what the magic formula is going to be. If you don't know it, I certainly don't know it.
yeah. And so I think that's a part of the puzzle. Like if we knew the answers to all these questions, like, trust me, I wouldn't be the only one or one of the few people who's doing this.
I was going to say, like, if it was that easy, there would be way more people doing this.
Right, exactly. So
cool. So, dude, one more question. I don't know if you have an answer to that, but was there any like behind the scenes stuff that you can share? Any kind of like almost complete mess up or some actual mess up that you managed to cover? Like something that went severely wrong that people want to hear about?
He met you in Prague. Terrible.
Oh my god, that was the beginning of the end, right? Totally disaster.
So actually, it's kind of funny. So when I was doing Eternal Week in Prague, we had two brilliant casters, Martin Yuza and Philip Skira, and I think they're great. One thing that I wanted to try to do, I have a very strong belief in every show. I want to be able to come back and say, I tried this new thing, and this is what I learned. And the new thing that I wanted to try was having an in-person caster, because I know, Julian, I've talked to you before about like how much of it's a little bit of a struggle to have a caster like on site for me. And so I said, you know what, screw it. We had Andreas Peterson, who was available, and I put him in a room and I was like, all right, well, let's see what we can do to make this work. And literally on the fly, I had never done this before. I hadn't even created like, the overlays for it. I chucked them in there, made it look presentable, and you could literally hear like Andreas's voice at certain times in the broadcast, literally like breaking up from the static of like the Wi-Fi connection not being too good. Then I turned his video off in real time, and it significantly improved things, and like like all that sort of stuff. Like we literally, I hot fixed him into the broadcast in real time, and I will say that is not maybe the best way to go about something like this, but I was very, very happy with the final output, and I think that specific near failure turned into success would be like one of the implementations for the future. Obviously, the problem being like, I still need, if we're gonna get casters on site, who the hell is gonna pay for the flight and the hotel? You know what I mean, like that kind of stuff. So like that's another bucket of problems. But yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't a complete like mess, and you learned a ton from that, and how you maybe might want to approach it in the future, I guess.
Yeah, losers improve. Losers always improve.
Cool. So, before we wrap it up here, what does the Discord have for you? There were a couple more questions. Oh yeah, here, Needon. For Anu, but also everyone, what is your favorite Magic event to watch of all time? Like the one event that you go back to that you watch the VODs on. Callum, do you want to go first?
Yeah, mine's easy. GP Denver 2013.
That was madness with elves, and
it was Pat Cox with Jund against Vidyantu Wijaya on S.
Yeah, in the finals, right?
Yeah.
But I remember that like I was hugely inspired by that for elves.
Yeah, that was,
I think madness played.
That was like just when I was getting into Legacy properly after taking a long break, and like just peak fanaticism about the format. So after that, I built Stoneblade and I built Jund, and I played both for years, and I watched it back every now and then. I love it.
Speaking of the value of coverage, by the way,
yeah,
like you remember that so many years later.
I bought cards and got addicted to this format because of that, probably.
Cool. Anu, is there any event that you would love to go back to and rewatch it every time?
I don't know if there's anything in particular, but I know like GP Richmond is something that is a critical event for me, and like I remember the match that I played against Reed in that event, and it was great. It was a fantastic match just because of like the complexity. Did I play it perfectly? Probably not. Was there some drama? Probably yes. But it was still a very nice like a match of Magic to watch.
Oh, I remember that was GP Ray Duke, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's up there as well.
You guys ended up drawing, right? I remember.
Yeah.
Cool. For me, it's gotta be Pro Tour Los Angeles 2005. Dating myself there, I guess. But that was literally the first piece of competitive Magic coverage I ever watched in my life. It was extended back then. Like, I think extended had just kind of rotated. Like, it wasn't like old extended. It also wasn't like old extended with the dual lands still. It was like new extended with Ravnica bounce lands and stuff. And it had like Antoine Ruel on Talk and Kenji Samura on like 4-color Talk and Billy Moreno on Blue Green Madness and Star Wars Kid, Chris McDaniel on Blue Green Heartbeat Desire and that kind of stuff. It was casted by Randy Bueller, and I don't remember the second guy. Probably BDM or someone. Mike Flores. Oh, dude. Yeah, I think it was Mike Flores.
I'm cheating because I've never watched it. I've got it on YouTube right now.
And that top 8, holy shit. Back then, you had to download it as like an AVI file. And I downloaded that on my crappy connection, and I rewatched all of those matches so many times. And if anybody has ever seen that, yeah, that force spike on Psycho Talk. That was just like like the coverage and especially the casters, they made it so that I, as a total noob, completely understood how much of a blowout that was. Because otherwise it would have just been like, yeah, force spike the creature, whatever. But
is that the one where he goes turn 1 Watergrave tap, say I don't have it? Is that it?
Yeah. So he goes turn 1 Watergrave tap, says like, okay, I don't have force spike. Then on the second turn he goes like land go, and Kenji Samura goes, okay, Duress you. And Antoine could have force spiked the Duress. No, wait, that doesn't make sense. No. Here we go. He mana leaks. He declines to force spike the mana leak. No. Okay, here's how it goes. Okay, sorry. First turn, yeah, as you mentioned, Watergrave tapped. Second turn, Antoine goes Duress. Kenji mana leaks it, and Antoine could have force spiked the mana leak, which would have been pretty good, right? You want your Duress to resolve, you take your Effect of Fiction, whatever. Like, you want that. But he didn't. Like, he was sending 2 strong signals of, I don't have Force Spike. So Kenji Samura
he also then loses to Tog if he doesn't.
Slams Psycho Talk and just, like, gets Psycho Talk Force Spiked. And, like, there's just, like, no way that he would run out Psycho Talk there, ever, unless you feel like he doesn't have anything. And
I need to go and watch this after. As soon as
you gotta watch this, because it's so big brain next level and so strong, and it's one of the, I want to say it's one of the most legendary plays in the history of the Pro Tour.
Holy shit, I'm flicking through it, and there's Moloku in play, and there's
the Cloud of Mirror Victory and everything.
Wait, this sounds sick. Okay.
Yeah, everybody, I think we're gonna link it in the show notes. Watch the top 8. Even like minor stuff. There was like Goblin Legionnaire, which is a creature you can pay a colorless mana and sacrifice it to deal 2 damage to any target, or I guess to prevent 2 damage.
It's a
pay white.
matter,
Nobody does that. But here comes the thing. So there was a Japanese player, Fujita, I believe, and he played Boros against, I wanna say, Antoine Ruel on Blue-Black Psycho Talk. And the coverage actually knew that his friends had playtested the matchup all night long. And because that was a thing, I guess that's still a thing kind of on the Pro Tour. And then he gets up in the morning and he's ready to be presented like the proper sideboard plan and strategy for the matchup. And his friends are like, dude, you cannot win. This matchup is the worst we've ever seen. You cannot win. So what's this? I think Vegeta was his name. What does he do? He's like, okay, gotta get lucky. And that was a best of 5, by the way. So he played like 3 post-board games. So he was like, okay, I will just sideboard out lands and hope I get lucky. Which was just like big brain. Like, this is that kind of level of like thinking about the game. That was amazing to me. And also like on a tactical level, you would, because there were Ravnica shock lands, you would usually crack your fetch lands end of turn and get your land tapped and untapped, like we've done that many times in Modern. But what Vegeta did was, there was a situation where he was basically tapped out except for that one fetch land, and he had Goblin Legionnaire in play. And he cracked his fetch land on his own upkeep. And even the casters did not realize why he cracked the fetch land on his own upkeep instead of the end step. And either I learned about it later on, or maybe somebody in the comments, or I don't know, I learned about it later on and it makes sense to me now, because if you crack your fetch land in the end step, then your opponent can kill your Goblin Legionnaire and you don't have mana open for the short amount of time, right? And
that's something that Legacy teaches you a lot. Well, I guess Modern as well, but
I just loved it so much to like at that tournament, watching those videos, the whole world opened up to me, because previously I had literally only played at my school and like watched, like picked up some of the world championship decks, like Kai Buddha and that kind of stuff. And I had no idea how those decks worked, and I thought like they were built terribly because they had like, what did I know? And that was when the whole world of Magic really opened up to me, and that was pre-T Los Angeles 2005, the top 8. And I will probably go back and watch this afterwards.
I've got to just admit, I'm skimming the quarters at the moment, what you're talking about, and Ruel is attacking with a lethal Psychotog, and what's the name again? Vegeta extends his hand onto the Psychotog. Ruel puts it out thinking it's GG, and Vegeta's like, no, and he slaps his hand away, saying, "How big is it?" Basically, he probably slaps it away. It's great.
Oh man. So yeah, that was the coolest event to watch for me, and that one I will ever go back to. So here's actually two more questions. Let's go with the Kinda question first. I guess that's a little bit quicker to answer. Kinda is asking, Anuraag, when are we gonna get your version of the Vintage Super League, and when are we gonna get a Legacy version of that?
I will be very honest with you. This is where I'm going to give the audience the transparent response, and that is that at the end of the day, it is tricky to balance viewership and metrics and gains with expectations to make our sponsors happy. Yeah, exactly, right? Like, I want to provide a product to my sponsor that they are especially proud of, that meets their needs. And what that means is I'm still trying to figure out how to balance less watched formats like Vintage and Legacy, and as much as it pains me to say that, that is just a hard truth. Everybody, I think, knows that's just what it is. So I'm still trying to figure out like what the solution is there. I think there will be more conversations that I'll have internally about what the future might hold, but for now, I leave this with an asterisk right now, and I am thinking about it, trying to figure out what are the best solutions in mind, and we'll go from there. Yeah.
So something I've always thought about, for example, the Legacy Premier League that we did, I sometimes thought maybe one way to do it is to have like the players, especially the high caliber players with like a lot of reach, to be much more vocal about their participation and also about the sponsor. But I don't know to which degree they actually want to do that. But that's like one avenue where I felt like maybe this could be more attractive for a sponsor, but also like, yeah, I don't know to which degree like the players who play in this do want to do that.
Yeah, it's certainly tricky, and this goes back to things being value propositions, right? Like I have to be able to prove to companies that the product that is on the table is providing value to them, and in order for it to provide value to them, it must provide value to the viewer. And if it turns out that, you know, I put a Vintage event on and fewer people come to watch it, I have to go back to people and say, well, unfortunately, and that's never how you want to start your sentence. Exactly. Right? Like, so it is certainly tricky. And here's the thing, right? I get a little bit of wiggle room. I can maybe, you know, justify a couple things. Like, I'll tell you already, like, you know, the event that I have run right now with the Vintage Cube stuff, I wish it performed better. You know, I really think Vintage Cube is an unexplored format, and like, you know, the numbers for there they're not personally there for me. I can't really speak to, you know, anyone who's invested in it.
Which kind of viewership are you getting for those?
We get like 200. I get like maybe 200, 250 viewers, whereas the Super League for that season was like, you know, 3 times the amount. And so if that's what it's like, I mean, I can't really market that, you know what I mean? And so what I'm very nervous is like what happens if I do something like for Vintage or Legacy, and then that's the same turnout, and then that kills all future events and options, right? That's where it's like it is a game. This kind of stuff matters. I mean, I don't think anyone is like, you know, saying that it doesn't, but it does sort of dictate how we move forward. And I'm not going to say more than that because, you know, I'd like to respect the privacy of just like, you know, internal things like that. But like, just like if I'm putting on a broadcast, it is, I cannot stress how important it is to watch. Literally, even if you just open the tab and like step away, like that's fine too. You know what I mean?
Open on your phone as well and on your tablet.
Yeah, exactly. Tell your mom, tell your grandfather, like, you know, all these people, right? But the numbers do matter. It is literally like without the numbers, you cannot sell the product, and if you cannot sell the product, it dies. Simple as that. So, that's what I'm trying to juggle. I really love Vintage and Legacy. I want to see them thrive and succeed, but we need to make sure that, you know, if we're trying something like this out, that we have, you know, a whole plan around making it succeed. So I know that's a lot more than maybe you were originally asking for, but I want to see it happen. This is the reality of the situation.
Great. Yeah, I love seeing that kind of like thought that goes into it, because I think some people sometimes, like, I mean, you must be getting that too, right? I probably way more than I do. Like, people often message me with, "Hey, I have this great idea for this event and this broadcast. You should do it." And I'm like, yes.
Oh, with all peace and love, I've had so many good ideas for our monthly London tournaments. So many ideas to turn it into a league, to do coverage, what and this and that. And every time it's like, well, yeah, when do you want to start doing it? It's a great idea. And then it never comes about.
I think there's some people, and I mean no offense, like maybe that's just their hobby. They like having ideas, but they don't like putting them into action, and then they send them to you, and they want you to treat them as like
this is
the second coming of Christ or
subtweet of
something.
being sent a deck list with a wacky idea, and it's like, will you play this for me?
You should do this, right?
But no,
Cool.
I don't mean that as in like a mean way to the people, because I think a lot of ideas, they genuinely think, oh, they haven't been thought of by people that are in positions to
I've
do
kind of
it,
made my peace with that, because I think a lot of the theory crafting aspect, that is the hobby for a lot of people. Like playing, yeah, that's another thing, because I recognize I do that for other games where I'm not competitive, right? Whether it's like StarCraft or whatever. I think I have like a lot of ideas and I kind of want to feel smart about them, but deep inside I know if I don't put them into action, it's whatever. But I still enjoy like that whole aspect of theory crafting. It's just, when it comes to like Magic decks or like events, I think you also gotta accept that somebody will just like not do that or respond even or something. I don't know. Anyway, and speaking of people coming to you with wanting to have their event that their LGS produced, there's one last question coming to us from our friend from Australia, Dukes on Twitch. And Dukes is asking, if an LGS is looking to start recording or providing coverage for its own in-house events, what would be 3 pieces of equipment to focus on? Anuraag, what would you say? You already made that decision. You do want to stream your event, which already is like, I think, something that should be discussed quite a lot, because like if you have like 5 people watching, I always like, I'm not the biggest fan of putting in the effort of streaming an event without like really knowing whether it's worth it. But if let's say you've decided you want to do that, you have some spare resources, what are the 3 most important pieces of equipment that you want to use?
So first one I would say is just have a decent camera. You only need one. It's okay if you don't have like a million different views. And this isn't really a piece of equipment, but the second thing that I would mention to have is a very robust broadcast stack. And what I mean by that is, this is one of those times where it's like, it's not the hardware that makes your broadcast enjoyable, it's the software, right? Like, for example, one thing that I want to work on is like, you know, if I'm watching a modern stream and somebody plays like, you know, Crashing Footfalls, right? I want to have like a little animation that I can play when they do that, kind of like an arena where like on the 2 sides, like not over the gameplay, but like, you know, like can you imagine my coverage overlay right now? It's like there's the gameplay and then you have the player's camera on the left and the player's camera on the right. But like when someone casts a Crashing Footfalls in modern, like I press a button and an animation comes up that covers the player cameras of like rhinos stampeding across the, you know what I mean? Like cool things like that, right? Like the polish in a broadcast, right? Like pick fonts that look good, you know, make sure that your spacing is correct, work on all the small details, right? You want it to be aesthetically pleasing, right? Like obviously like have like the minimum entry of requirement kind of camera and have the minimum entry of requirement microphone and things like that. But like focus on making your broadcast beautiful, because that's what people will notice. They will say, hey, this is a high quality product. You don't need a million different cameras to make it a high quality product. You just need, there are other ways to polish your thing, and then eventually, you grow, you add other things that you're mentioning too, right? So I would say those are the two most important things. I mean, like for a third one, honestly, I don't know. There's
Light.
nothing else really super necessary. Tokens. Just tokens. I would say that's.
When are we gonna see some of those Savatarix tokens in your deck box? Is that like another sponsorship opportunity? Like somebody comes in, they're like, "Hey, if you're gonna use our tokens, we're gonna, I don't know, cover this and that."
That's a really interesting question that I would have to contemplate, because at the end of the day, people are always watching, and I want to make sure that. Like Kai's tokens are good. I love his tokens. He sent me a beautiful letter. He mailed his tokens to me from Germany, and I have it like in my it's like in my room with all my other Magic swag. Like it's like I don't know. It's a very heartfelt letter, and I keep it there to sort of like remind me of just like how incredible the community is. The caveat is that for a professional broadcast, it becomes very tricky on what you can use and how you can use it and where you can use it and why you can use it and who allows what. So I'll put another asterisk on that one as well.
Yeah.
But
yeah, in a world where people can't use their own playmats, it's kind of tricky to, like, I guess, introduce non-Magic tokens. And I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying.
Like I can't, like I have had people have even come up to me and be like, "Hey, can I use this like very well-known RK Post token?" And I'm like, "Sorry, let's use official tokens, please. Let's keep things professional and make sure that if I show this product to somebody else, that they will not look at the board state and be like, what is this? Why is there like a dark magician in play or something like that?"
I guess it also like it spares you the discussion of, hey, which artist tokens are okay and which artist tokens are not okay. So once you draw like a clear line, like Wizards products, that's where it's at and nothing else. Yeah, I can see that. But I'm curious. You mentioned like proper camera and have like a very robust stack and basically software. But is lightning something that you would also like? Because I feel like when I watch a stream and like the table is not properly lit, I almost want to turn it off immediately. I just like it looks so unprofessional.
Yeah, I think glare like that. I would chalk that up into like things like polish too, right? Like when you're watching your broadcast and you see a giant glare spot in the middle of your overlay in your screen, like that is like making sure make sure those pixels look good, right? And so like it's one of those things where like I could go over every single detail, but then what you would notice is that this is more than just 3 items. It's like 100 million, right? So my what I would actually say is like make the broadcast look beautiful, and every show, find one thing that you can improve on. Don't necessarily go out and, spend $1 million on day one and to have the perfect broadcast. Like, get the content out there. That's like obviously the most important thing. But, improve slowly and steadily. And then I think things will just naturally get there. And one of those things will be like one day, all right, we'll get rid of that glare spot. Like you know what light source is coming here. Just put up an umbrella, block that light, and then bang. And that's like, a reasonable way to go about it. So, things like that, right? Yeah, I would say like, and obviously like the other thing too is like, don't settle for mediocrity, right? Like if you, you know what I mean? Like make it look so good that nobody else, can compete with what you have, or at least that's how I sort of view my mantra on coverage, and so that's why I pass that along and say like, hey, if you're doing something, make sure it's the best in business kind of deal. Like at least like, okay, well I say that, but then I'm kind of contradicting myself, but like with the end goal of it being the best in business, like for something like a font, right? You can like go through 100 fonts and find the one that is the best one. Like put the effort in that. That's more important stuff than like buy this camera, buy this microphone, buy this lens. Like I think like just like make sure your broadcast is beautiful. Do not like hire a designer if you need to. Right?
Dude, I was literally going to bring that one up. Sorry to interrupt you there. I was literally going to bring that one up. I was actually talking to a friend of mine about that in a slightly different niche, I guess, of content creation. And that was one of the very first lessons I learned in marketing. And I thought back and, I'm trying to remember the book. Dude, I got to remember the book. Because when I started my first job, which was like heavily focused on marketing, a friend of mine gifted me a book. Actually, she lent me a book. I had to give it back. I didn't realize that I had to give it back, which was like kind of sad. Anyway, and that one, okay, it's called Damn Good Advice by George Louis Lois. Anyway, he's one of the most famous American marketers, and he wrote the book Damn Good Advice for people with talent, in brackets. I love that. And that book had, one of the lessons was, when it comes to visual stuff, work with a professional. Don't try to, like half-ass your way through Paint and say, hey, it's good enough for me. Like if when it comes to visuals, like content, you can kind of wing, like if you write copy or something. But when it comes to visual stuff, it will jump out at you and it will make people think, oh, this is not an ambitious production. Like if the stuff that you produce, the actual content is not that great, you can still work on that and people might not even notice, which is kind of like, it sounds cheap, but yeah. But if the visual appeal is not there, people will immediately see you have no ambition, or maybe you have no money. I mean, that's another thing, but you gotta start somewhere. But when it comes to visual stuff, work with a professional, or even just like a semi-professional. You don't need to hire that, like, I don't know, $500 an hour designer or something, but somebody who knows what they're doing. Even somebody who knows that, like, the spacing, the use of the anyway, I'm going way too deep into that because I've had that conversation with a lot of people over a lot of things when it comes to visual presentation, and I think a lot of people would really benefit from what you just said. Work with a designer.
Yeah,
somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, 100%. I don't have that. Not everybody is Brian Cook with just like the natural grace and finesse. I'm certainly not one of those people. And I have found that,
By the way, shout out to Brian for having the best thumbnails in all of Magic.
You think so too, right? Legacy. Okay, cool. All right, we're on the same page. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. I absolutely love his like thumb. I mean, he it's his job, but that we shouldn't hold it against him, right? Okay, guys, we started this out. I said, okay, let's not make this a 2-hour thing, but now it is a 2-hour thing to close out the year. Anu, thank you so much for coming on the stream. Callum, you as well. I know you're pretty sick, and Kai let us down. I hope he's winning
Kai,
God of Legacy.
If he doesn't win, I'm going to be very disappointed. But no, for me, you probably hear it in my voice still. I'm a bit ill at the moment, but you two were just talking about your areas. I don't know much about the coverage apart from watching it, so it's all good.
I mean, that's an important insight as well, right?
I'm
like, what do you enjoy, what do you not enjoy?
No, it's good. This is very enlightening because there's a lot of things which I always kind of assumed and didn't quite know, so to hear it.
I hope it's going to be the same feeling for our listeners.
I think so.
Awesome. So, Anu, you got any shout-outs?
No, just to you guys for being insane. Hey, oh yeah, let's go.
Oh, you two.
Three insane people walk into our podcast. Awesome. If you also want to become insane, you can support us. And if you want to support our insanity, you can leave a review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you rate podcasts. Tell your friends, tell your enemies about it. You can also support us on patreon.com/everydayeternal. You can check out our social media at EternalMTG on both Twitter and Instagram. And with that, big shout outs to the people. We talked about how much it matters that you tune in, you make everything work. And in this case, also sign up to the Patreon. Our Eternal Witness tier supporters, Colin Garassi, Alex Crow, Tim Everett, Testacular, Sebastian Hollager, Guillaume, Sean Dewey, Francis Cowper, Cassandra Davis, Dylan Shoemaker, Retro Shara, Tom Zischka, Benedict Gruber, and Severin Schwarzhuber. Dude, we have so many people supporting us. This is actually crazy. This is the longest list I've ever read out. And of course, our Grizzlebrand tier supporters, Scott Monroe, Tom Hepp, Kane, Ian Seefeld, and Colonoscopy. Everybody, have a great, as we call it in German, slide into the new year. Everybody, thank you so much for keeping the lights on here. And we're really very much looking forward to seeing all of you again next year, whether it's at Impact Returns, Four Seasons, what have you, in the US maybe, who knows, maybe even Japan. We have people tuning in from everywhere. Thank you so much, and see you again next year. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.